Morning, everybody. We will start this webinar in about a minute or two. We can see the attendees kind of starting to filter in now, but want to make sure everybody can catch the beginning. Just right at the beginning, before we even start, could somebody type into the chat that you can at least hear me and see my screen? I feel like it's always good to start these things off by making sure that everybody can see us. All right, thank you. I guess at this point, let's go ahead and get started. So my name is Adam. I am the Director of Product at DipJar. I am joined by Pat Stiles and Bhavna Sharma from American Express. Pat and Bhavna, would you like to introduce yourselves briefly?
Sure. Thank you so much for having us on, Adam. My name is Bhavna Sharma, and I work as a partner manager supporting a portfolio of payment facilitators such as DipJar through our third-party acquiring relationships. In my role, I have been working very closely with the DipJar team, such as yourself, Adam, to really understand more about your businesses and where there are opportunities for American Express to help grow volume, help grow your business, especially during these very challenging times. And on the line as well, we also have Pat Stiles, who is our marketing specialist, she's specifically focused on driving marketing opportunities within the nonprofit charity space. And Pat is going to take us through a bit later some of the best practices and opportunities that she's seen in the industry, working very closely in it. So we look forward to sharing that with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, both of you. So we do have a pretty action-packed webinar. We're rolling out a new feature. We want to, as much as possible, help all of you organizations out there to maximize the amount of donations that you're getting, not only the amount of donations, but being able to pick donation amounts and asks that are going to be the most profitable for you. And then after that, we're going to turn this over to Bhavna and Pat, who are going to go through and kind of help everybody out with some of their very, very hard-won expertise on working with organizations and merchants and cardholders through Amex. So right at the beginning, just kind of a quick overview in case you don't happen to have a DipJar sitting in your lobby right now. I did want to start by kind of going over what it is that we offer. So DipJar is it's a couple of things, honestly. First and foremost, and originally, it is a very friendly, very, very cool device that's designed to help you as organizations collect donations that you weren't otherwise going to. It's very, very easy to use. It comes, of course, with tons of performance tracking, so you can kind of use our reporting tools to figure out what sort of campaign is going to be the best for you, and then actually moving into that. Because DipJar really isn't just a device anymore. It's also now a suite of supporting software. We have campaigns. Campaigns are something that we designed to allow donors to see the impact. There are a couple of different options for campaigns. You can either sort of show it on a screen as part of a thermometer, which we'll see later, or we also have, and this is what we're going to get into in depth, a service called Spark Virtual, which will allow you to actually collect donations on a screen virtually. And lastly, we recently rolled out donor-covered fees, which is something that we're going to get into a bit more later as well. The idea behind this is that your donors will actually choose to cover the fees that are incurred in the act of processing a card, which means that all of your donation will go to your org. Now, we're going to start off, and there was a bit of discussion about this while planning the webinar, but I do come from about 10 years in the payment space, and I couldn't just couldn't resist starting off talking about payments a little bit. The idea here is maximizing donations. And in order to understand this more, we need to talk a little bit about the true cost of accepting card payments in any way. Now, like I said, I was in this space for a while. I could probably make about 100 slides on this, but I have promised everyone that I would keep it down to just 2. So, what is true cost? Any organizations that process cards, it doesn't really matter if it's for-profit or non-profit, are responsible for costs levied by the issuing banks of each card and also the card brands themselves. Now, this in and of itself is an entire industry, and it can get really, really complicated, but we're going to break it down into its most simple parts. Firstly, everything involving processing costs are either percentages or pennies. The percentages and pennies can vary quite a bit, but everything is either a rate on the dollar or a per transaction fee of some kind. Secondly, it's important to understand that the banks and card brands charge differently for different types of transaction methods. Now, there are 2 main flavors. Card present is when your donors are actually in front of a dip jar, dipping or swiping their credit card. Card not present is quite literally everything else. So this is when a donation is made virtually. If somebody were to give you their card number and you entered it manually, looks like I'm speeding back here. Now, at DipJar, we have simplified the quite literally thousands, actually tens of thousands of possible combinations into one static rate and per transaction fee. And uniquely, we actually don't charge a higher rate or fee for different transaction methods or different bank cards. This is something that is very, very typical within the industry. Usually, a card not present transaction is going to be at least 1%, usually 1.5% higher than a card present transaction. And additionally, our unique pricing structure is set so that any organization looking to attract American Express cardholders is going to be able to do so without any additional fees. Most traditional processing companies are going to charge about 1% more for an American Express transaction than any of the other major card brands. So, due to the static rate and fee structure, it's actually really simple to figure out what the best donation amount is to make sure as much of your intended donation is going to your organization. So we're going to do a quick exercise. It's very quick. It's just 2 lines of math, and we've actually already done the math. Let us take, for example, our premium plan, which has a flat rate of 2.9% and 30 cents a transaction. Now, if you were to set your dip jar to $5, or set the Spark virtual campaign to $5, we would be multiplying 5 times 0.029 plus 30 cents, or 44.5 cents. Now, what this means is that at a $5 donation, you're going to end up losing 8.9% of that donation. That's quite a bit. Now, if you were to, say, set your dip jar or receive a Spark virtual donation at $30, it's a little bit better, quite a bit better actually. That would be 30 times 0.029 plus 30, or $1.17. That's only 3.9% of the total donation. Now, what we're really talking about here, and it goes back to the whole idea of points and cents, is that the difference in the donation that you actually receive is due to how the static rate and static per transaction fee work with the dollar amount. Obviously, the lower the donation amount, the more important the per transaction fee. The higher the donation amount, the more important the rate is. With this in mind, we suggest a couple of things. Firstly, if you're going to go with a low dollar amount, and we have a lot of organizations that pick a low dollar amount either because they think that that's what's going to work best for their donors, or there is sort of a structural reason, or a reason that's important to their organization. But if you're going to pick a donation that's in the low range, highly recommend that you enable donor-covered fees. Like I mentioned before, this is going to allow donors to actually cover the transaction fees associated with that donation. For the $5 donation above, the donor would actually be making a total donation of $5.45 when donor-covered fees is turned on. And of course, when you do turn it on, we're able to help you out with all of the placards and notifications that you would need in order to make sure that that's an okay thing. I will say that in the history of donor-covered fees, we have never had a donor unhappy with it. And of course, the second thing is play around with higher donation asks for your dip jar. We have seen organizations be very, very successful setting their jars in the $25 to $30 range. And that is actually a really, really good middle ground between the rate and the fee. It means that kind of your effective rate or the overall rate that's going to the processing fees is as low as possible. All right, so now that we've gotten the math stuff done, there are a few other ways that we can help maximize donation amounts. And this is really kind of the thing that made us want to put this webinar on today. Spark Virtual is launching into the world of virtual giving, essentially donations right from the dip jar dashboard. These virtual campaigns allow donors to choose from several preset amounts or enter their own custom donation amount. The functionality is highly important. And really what it does is it gives you a whole other span of time at which donors can make a donation. The dip jar itself is fast-paced, it's fun, it lights up, it makes sounds, it's effectively a game. Everybody loves it. But because it is built on the idea of being really fast, it means that you really can't take a lot of time while you're making the donation to choose an amount. This is why dip jars themselves are all set to a static amount. However, what we have noticed is if donors are giving through Spark Virtual, they typically end up giving far, far more than twice the amount of the average transaction size. Now, Spark Virtual is designed to be best used in the presence of a jar, but it also can be sent out in an email. URLs can be tracked and sent out to distribution lists. We have plenty of orgs who are printing these out on QR codes. The whole idea is Spark Virtual it's not going to just be an online donation platform. It's going to be something that allows you to make your dip jar more active and your campaign more successful. So what we've done is, and this is actually brand new as of just a couple of days ago, we have built the ability to have multiple campaigns. We're always looking for ways to improve the giving experience, and one of the things that we have found most of our most successful organizations asking for is the ability to set up more than one campaign running simultaneously. You can do a ton of things with this. You can promote healthy competition. You can get very, very specific with what you are asking for donations for. And one of the things that we found is that the more specific your ask, the more money you're going to get. You can set yourself up into regions. We actually came up with a pretty cool use case for multiple campaigns that we're going to go through in the demo, thanks to an ally org of ours called Big East Bullies down in Pittsburgh. And best of all, it's actually really, really simple to set up. So I'm going to walk you all through it now. In your dashboard, you'll want to select the campaigns icon and then select new campaign from the start of the screen. And you'll notice that there are already 2 active campaigns here, which is something that wasn't possible before. Previously, if you had multiple campaigns, you would have to toggle between which one was active and inactive. But click New Campaign, and it's going to bring you to a very, very simple screen where not a whole lot of information needs to be entered. It's essential that you add a campaign name, a start date, and an end date. You're also going to need to choose a goal, a theme, and a donation display option. You can kind of see that I've done all of this here. And while it's not ultimately necessary, we highly recommend adding a description of the campaign and a background image to engage donors further. The whole idea of Spark as a visual service or Spark Virtual as a donation platform is that it really, really needs to engage potential donors. The whole idea of multiple campaigns is that you can create really specific and personalized calls to action when fundraising. This is what we have found really tends to resonate with donors. Once you have filled all of that out, you need to create a team and connect a jar to it. Now, very, very important that within the lexicon of dip jar, everything is a jar. It could be a physical jar or it could be Spark Virtual. In this particular case, I am trying to make sure that a rescue dog named Archie gets enough veterinary care and foster care that he's able to be adopted. So I'm naming my team Team Archie. And under jars, I'm picking online donations because I want to make sure that this is something where I can send a URL out to my potential donors. I can add a QR code. I can let people donate from wherever they happen to be. So you want to create a name for the team that's super easy to reference, and you want to assign a dip jar or dip jars. If you select online donations only, it's only going to be Spark Virtual. But you can also select a physical dip jar if you want to add that to the campaign, and then click Save. Next up, you'll see the relevant information appear below in the team section. So I've created Team Archie. I have set the jar for online donations. And then once I click Save once more, my campaign is created and active. So now we have 3 unique campaigns for 3 very specific, unique dogs that all need some help. If we wanted to create more, we could. If we thought that this was enough, we can just go ahead and keep moving. But these URLs right here, these are something that can be sent out in emails. This is something where we can generate QR codes. But let's move on and see what it actually looks like when it's complete. So here is the Spark Virtual interface. Spark Virtual, of course, is the actual online donation platform. So we've got all 3 of these campaigns set up. They're running. They're ready to be shared. If you were to click on a URL, you would be able to go there right now. Now, teams can manage their own campaigns. Links can be sent through email or posted on social media. The QR codes can actually be embedded in the Spark campaigns themselves, or just simply placed in strategic locations. We've seen orgs post QR codes at any number of really, really interesting places. And if you want to see the actual Spark display, this is what you would necessarily want to put on a screen or a tablet in a lobby or at an event. This is going to show you how close we are to our goal. So we've got Duffy, we've got Asher, we've got Archie. It looks like Duffy's winning a little bit right now, but this is really just something that you can use as a call to action to maybe help Asher and Archie catch up, right? The whole idea here is that instead of having one campaign with a generalized ask, you're able to have as many as you need with really specific asks, and then you can play against one another in competition. The other really cool feature is that if you donate and you're in front of the Spark screen, it's going to thank you personally. So that's actually it for multiple campaigns. And I will admit, when I was going through with our marketing team and our engineers kind of designing the webinar, I was thinking that there were going to be a lot more slides, a lot more instruction. But the thing about Spark Virtual campaigns is that they really are just that easy to set up. That said, there is a little bit more about maximizing donations that we can talk about before we kick this over to Bob and Pat. So you've already got one or more Spark Virtual campaigns up and running, and you want to make sure that you are maximizing donations in the system. You've already got donor-covered fees turned on, or you've already picked a donation amount that's going to give you a really good effective rate. But you want to make sure that you're attracting card holders that have the highest likelihood of picking the highest donation amount possible. Now, across all major card brands, the one with the average largest transaction amount is American Express, and it's a very, very large margin. Like I mentioned earlier, DipJar does not charge a higher amount for American Express processing, and this really is typical in the industry. So there's literally no penalty in rates or fees for trying to attract this type of cardholder. Now, as a DipJar customer, you have automatically been opted in to be able to accept American Express. DipJar devices and Spark virtual campaigns accept all major credit cards. And on that note, I think that actually is a perfect time to turn this over to Pat and Bob.
Thank you so much, Adam. As you know, as Adam mentioned, you know, we're very fortunate. We love working with DipJar. They've been such a great partner, especially ensuring that you do have the same rate, you know, across the board. I do want to take you through, Pat and I will take you through a couple of slides here, a little bit on. You can jump to the next page, Adam. Okay, great. So I will take you through a little bit of where American Express has been, what we've been really focused on, and how our card members can help bring more business to you. And then Pat will take you through a couple of marketing resources that we have available, and they're free for you. So we want to make sure that we make you aware of everything that's out there today. So you can jump to the next slide, Adam. Can you go one more? All right. So, so you can see here, this is actually one of my favorite slides to talk about. So American Express in the past few years has been extremely focused on bridging our acceptance gap. So if you were to look at this map that you see here on the slide a couple of years ago, it may not have been as blue as you see it. There were definitely some gaps in, for example, middle America. And so programs like OptBlue have actually helped us really bridge this gap. And so what OptBlue has been able to do is drive more competitive rates, which then ultimately allows folks like DipJar to be able to extend you that same rate. And so you see one rate for Visa, MasterCard, and American Express and Discover. So we're very excited to share that as of now, American Express is accepted at 99% of places in the United States that accept cards. And then another key focus that we've really been thinking about and focused on is how to really drive strong card like our card value propositions. And so we have spent a lot of time just really understanding our consumer base, what's driving their behavior, what do they look for, and by doing that, we've actually driven 50. So currently, millennials now make up 50% of our new Platinum card, and so this is really exciting for us because they are driving the spend for us across the United States, and that's really helping our acceptance as well. You can jump to the next slide. So in the next few slides, what I really wanted to kind of focus on is a bit about what you know, Adam had mentioned a little bit earlier on the value that we bring for you. So our card member base does have an extremely appealing profile. And so what does that really mean for you? So we did in a recent study that we did back in February of this year, what we found is that on average, Amex card members have an annual spend that's 2.8 times that of our competitors. And with that, the average transaction size is also 30% higher. And so what this means for you is that hopefully with, you know, when you're now thinking about Spark and you're thinking about the customer has the ability to choose their amount, we're hoping that you start to see this in your donations. If you move to the next slide, you can actually see an example of what those average tickets look like. So you can see here that American Express is slightly higher, and this is an average that we did across all U.S. merchants. So this isn't specific, you know, to charities or donations in general, but it just shows you that this is where I think we're going to hopefully help you drive more business and those higher tickets. So I'm going to pass it over to Pat to take you through some of our marketing resources.
Thank you, Bhavna. And Adam, you can move to the next slide, please. So as Bhavna said, I am going to focus on some of the resources and tools that American Express makes available to you as a merchant who accepts our card. We have quite a few of them. However, today we're going to focus on three that we think are pretty relevant for you. One is going to be signage. Business class for merchants is content, and Amex offers for merchants are savings that you can take advantage of. And we'll go into each of those in a little bit more detail on the next few slides. So Adam, if you don't mind. Okay, the first one is signage. It's very important, and Adam referenced this before as well. And as you can see on Spark Virtual, the different card brands that are accepted are clearly indicated on the Spark Virtual campaign screen as well as on the checkout page. American Express highly encourages signage because our card members, we know from research we've done, that they look for that blue box. And if they don't see it in connection with the other card brands, the automatic assumption is that it's not accepted. So it's very important, not only on the American Express side, that there is a visual representation of all the payment options available to your customers and your donors, but also it makes the payment journey a lot, less, creates less friction for your customers. It just makes it an easier process. American Express provides digital signage, downloadable digital signage, as well as physical signage if your business has a physical location, a store, or anything like that. Now, DipJar has already done some of the heavy lifting for you by including the visual signage in the payment portals. But you also, if you send out invoices, you can certainly put the digital signage on those. If you have a website outside of the donation, you can also put signage there. It's very easy to order or download signage from American Express. It's all free, and it's americanexpress.com/signage. And we will make sure that you have access to all of this information and these links and everything after the webinar. DipJar will be sending out information to you. Adam, if you can go to the next slide. So the other resource that we have available to you is called Business Class for Merchants, and that essentially is our content hub. And I know as customers of DipJar, you also have access to their resources where they continually post blogs and information to help your business. We do the same. And while most of what DipJar provides to you is really around the charity space and donations, our content is a little bit more focused on your business. And there's a lot of information in there on how to work with employees, how to, get your business through the pandemic and recovery and all of those types of articles. And we think that if you visit that site from time to time, you'll find some useful tools that you can leverage. Again, the URL for that is americanexpress.com/business-solutions. But we will share that with you after, so you don't have to try and write that all down. Adam, the next slide. And this is really a terrific resource for you, and it's called Amex Offers for Merchants. What we have done is we have created a collection of services and discounts and savings from some of our very large partners. And we make those savings available to you as a merchant who accepts American Express. So, for example, Ripple is a company that helps small businesses create attractive and engaging social media postings, right? So they have, it's a subscription-based service, and they give you the ability to really download images that are relevant to your business, create copy, do very interesting and engaging graphics for your social media. And all of that is offered to you at a significant discount because you're an American Express merchant. For example, FedEx also gives discounts to our merchants on their rates, their shipping rates. Intuit QuickBooks does the same thing. If you're sending out emails, Constant Contact is also a subscription service for marketing, and they offer this service at a discount because you accept American Express. That can be those savings and services, and there's a lot more than just the ones that we've featured here, can be viewed at americanexpress.com/business-solutions. Adam? And that's all we have for you. Like I said before, there are a lot more resources and tools available to you. And if you visit our site, you can read up on them. You can learn about them. If you have questions, you can always reach out to the folks at DipJar. We work very closely with them and are happy to give them information that they can pass along to you as well. Thank you so much for your time today, and we really appreciate your business. We appreciate you accepting our card and welcoming our customers.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for joining us today, Pat and Bhavna. At this point, we would love to open it up for questions. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to throw them in the chat or in the question pane, and we'll do our best to knock those out for you. See. Certainly give this a few minutes to see if anybody has anything. Hopefully, I love answering questions. I love even more answering like relevant questions, but I guess I can take this couple of minutes here to kind of wax lyrical about what I think my favorite use case of the Spark Virtual Multiple Campaigns is. And it really goes back to the idea of what can you do to make the jar that you've got as actionable as possible. Let's say you're hosting an event. Let's say hypothetically that Biggie's Bullies, the organization that was very, very kind and let us make campaigns for them, was hosting an event. And attendees at that event felt really, really strongly about donating to one or more of those dogs. If you are using Spark Virtual and you have multiple campaigns, then those people can actually scan the QR code and post it on their own social media. This is something that was very, very specifically designed to make the jar that you have more actionable over a larger geographical area in a larger amount of time. What if the pool of donors that you have are not just the 50 or 100 people that are at your event? What if they're every single person that those people know? That is really the idea here. That's kind of what we want people to be using Spark Virtual for. It is certainly what our organizations who have been using it for most successfully for the longest period of time. Let's see if anything's popped up. We actually don't have any questions yet. Well, I guess if that's the case, then every single person is.
Hey, Adam.
Yes.
Hey, Adam, we did receive some questions. If you want to check in the chat, if you can see them there, I posted some of the questions that people have asked.
Oh, interesting. Hold on. And I am not seeing any of those in the chat, actually. Hold on.
I can just read them out for you too.
Yeah, I was going to say, Melissa, there was, and certainly anybody on this webinar who knows me knows that there was no way I was going to do the entire thing without some kind of, technical something. So Melissa, if you would like to be so kind as to read questions, I will.
Absolutely, I'm
be as
happy
I can.
I can be the voice from beyond. So one of the first questions we have is if you can just clarify how donor-covered fees work. If you can just explain how they work for Spark Virtual, but also how they work for the jar and how we need to communicate that with donors.
Sure. The process is identical, regardless of whether or not we're talking about something virtual or we're talking about a physical jar. The only real difference is kind of the signage, the placarding, the notifications, that sort of thing. Either way, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to make known to your potential donors that you are going to be having them cover the fees. This is an online notification, an on-the-screen notification if you're talking about a Spark Virtual donation. If you are talking about an actual physical dip jar, in your dashboard, if you were to enable donor-covered fees, you would be directed to a place where you can actually print out the signage. It's very, very simple. Essentially, it basically just says, your donation will also cover, applicable bank and card processing fees. I actually don't remember the exact verbiage off the top of my head, but it's very simple. It's something that's designed to go next to the jar.
Great. The next question kind of related to that is somebody asked if you can help a little bit more with the math. So the question is, if people accept the charge to pay for fees, aren't there fees on that higher amount that they're paying? So in the case of the example we gave for the $5, and if somebody covered the fees, that they're actually going to see the donor would be paying $5.45. So the question is, aren't there fees on top of that $5.45, or how exactly are those fees being covered?
That makes total sense, considering that you're asking a guy who came from the payment space. It always seems like there would be fees on fees on fees. However, that actually isn't the case. If you were to enable donor-covered fees, you would simply be having your donors pay the actual processing fees of the transaction that otherwise would come out of your donation and be sent to the issuing banks and the card brands. So I think what the question is by adding to the amount of the donation itself, does that not actually increase what the fees would be because of the total donation amount? But the answer is no, it doesn't. So once you have placarded your intent to do that, your donors will pay exactly what the donation is plus the relevant processing fee.
Great. The next question is, and this might be more for our support team after the call, but you might be able to answer it, Adam. How can you have multiple Spark Virtual donation pages for multiple campaigns? How is it only that one Spark Virtual shows up, they have multiple campaigns but aren't seeing multiple Spark Virtual links?
Is this something that was set up like within the last day or so? I think this actually might be a really good takeaway for a conversation. If we can get the contact information of whoever that is, I or someone on support can touch base and walk you through it.
Absolutely.
I mean, the short answer is that every single one of those campaigns is viewable uniquely unto itself. But if a walkthrough is needed, we can definitely touch base afterwards and provide one.
Yep, Jennifer, we can follow up with you after that to answer that question in a little bit more. Back to the tax-exempt donation, the donor-covered fees, there was a clarification point. Is the tax-exempt donation just for the core donation, or would it include the fee amount as well?
It would include the fee amount as well, because it's something that the donor is actually paying. From a tax perspective, it doesn't really matter how much of that donation is going to you as an org. I mean, if I remember several years back, there was a lot of talk in the media about people finding out what the percentage of their charitable giving was that was actually going to the organizations as a real donation and what was covering other costs. The IRS doesn't really care what the money is going to. The point is that a donor donated that amount. So in our $5.45 example, that donor would be able to write off $5.45. Is there anything else in that question box, Melissa?
Oh, Adam, can you hear me for this last
Yes.
question? Okay.
Well, I can hear you now.
Got it. Sorry, it looks like my internet might be cutting out. Somebody asked, is there an additional cost for Spark?
Spark as a service is totally free of charge. Now, very, very important to understand that Spark is the visual representation of a campaign. That was the second page of campaigns that I showed you that had a thermometer. The only thing that it does, Spark's entire reason for existence, is to show visual process of a campaign that exists on a dip jar that was set up, something that was set up in the dashboard. Spark Virtual, there is a nominal upcharge for that. There are a couple different options. It definitely is very nominal no matter what plan you pick. But if it's something that you don't have that you're interested in, definitely contact us. We can get it set up for you.
Great. Another question back to donor covered fees. If you have a physical dip jar and you have donor covered fees turned on, does the donor have the ability to opt out of covering fees?
No. And for two reasons. The first one is simplicity. We have all spoken quite a bit about how the purpose of the dip jar itself is to be something that's really, really quick, really simple, really convenient, something that's kind of a joy to use. So right off the bat, if what you're doing is giving a donor a choice of an action, regardless of what that action is, if you are giving a donor a choice of action at a dip jar, you're going to effectively be doubling the amount of time that they spend at that dip jar, which means that that's going to be time when another donor couldn't be coming up. The other reason, which is, I'm going to try and not get too paymentsy on this, but I got to tell you, it's getting really hard. Donor covered fees or surcharging or anything, and you can definitely hear about this in the media, read about it online. In order to be able to charge a surcharge or have donors cover your fees in any way, shape, or form, the only way that it's okay is if it is the only option. So if you were to actually give people the option, you would be in breach of some of the card brand regulations, primarily Visa and MasterCard, which is a very, very strange set of circumstances, but also is what it is. So I guess the short answer to this is, if donor covered fees are on, they're on.
Great. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Wow.
Great. Adam, I think that looks like all the questions.
Well, on behalf of myself and everyone here at DipJar and our partners at Amex, we're absolutely thrilled that you shared a morning or part of an afternoon, depending on where you're at with us. We're always really, really happy to be able to connect with our organizations. If you have questions that pop up afterwards, if you're interested in Spark Virtual, want to talk about donor covered fees, really anything at all, we're highly findable. Please find us and ask. We would love to chat. So on that note, I will sign off and wish everybody an excellent rest of their day.